summer. I love the sun and everything that summer brings, including the happiness of people.
Absolutely.
It gives people a big smile.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I think we are live now. Welcome everybody. My name is Domenico Boyagian. I'm music director of Cleveland Opera Theater. This is our appointment with Maestro's Corner on Friday, when we get to meet special people, and hopefully my hope is that knowing the individuals behind the notes and the books and the production, you get to not just learn but also enjoy performances a little bit better. And today I'm so happy and honored to have a mentor, a friend, a VIP of opera, Maestro Joseph Colaneri. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Domenico. It's wonderful to be with you. We haven't seen each other actually in a long time, so this was a great way to catch up.
Exactly. So we just use it as an excuse to see each other.
Perfect.
You're one of those people that it's a lot easier to ask you what you haven't done, because you have done so much in your career and you continue on doing so much in your career. You have been on, and you still are on the roster of the Metropolitan Opera since 1998.
Yes.
You were artistic director of West Australian Opera 2012 through 2014.
Correct. Yes.
You were living in the golden days, I believe, of New York City Opera,
I was there having a great time.
and uh, and the performances that you do, like as guest conductors, are just incredible. In fact, I was um, friendly stalking you a little bit. I hope you didn't feel that way,
Oh,
but I just I just wanted to see what you were doing, and learning, and being part of that tradition that you know so well. So I'm just happy. I hope you see that I'm happy. I'm very happy right
I do see that.
now.
And of course, currently I am the music director of the Glimmerglass Festival.
Glimmerglass Festival, and you are in the middle of the festival right now, but under very difficult circumstances.
Very different circumstances right
Tell
now.
us about
Yes.
it, please.
No live performances this
Mhm.
summer. We would have been gearing up right now. I would have been up in Cooperstown now for probably 3 weeks already, gearing up for rehearsals for the season, for the 4 main stage operas, of which I was going to conduct 2. But COVID-19 has intervened, and the world has changed. So
Yep.
along with everyone else, we've canceled the live performances. And now we are getting ready to roll out some really wonderful digital content.
Oh, great.
We had a town hall to kick things off last week, and have more town halls coming up, and lots of other surprises. So I would tell everybody to keep an eye at glimmerglass.org, our website, and have a look at the digital content that'll be coming out. Very happily, we have 54 young artists who
Oh,
are
wow.
participating, yes, in online master classes and various kinds of musical offerings. In a way, it's kind of interesting because we're able to offer the young artists in some ways a different program this summer, a more expanded program, if you will, in certain areas. I mean, of course, they won't have live performances and live coaching, but what I find really interesting is that we can expand into areas that there just isn't time for, because everyone is so busy trying to get everything packed in with a huge amount of rehearsals and performances. The young artists are they're always a very, very talented group, but they're very, very busy. So there's time to expand a little bit. So we have some wonderful guests that are joining us this summer: Bill Burden, Isabel Leonard, who are our artists in residence. Eric Owens, who's our artistic advisor, will be doing some work with the young artists. I'll be doing some classes online with them. So there's been some wonderful, wonderful programs rolled out for them, and we're all looking forward to it. Music staff is very excited.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we definitely have to find creative ways
absolutely.
to do what we do, and actually these this I think enabled us to, as you were saying earlier, to uh, expand what we usually do
Hmm.
and actually do more in a sense.
Right.
So are you doing everything? You're basically doing everything from home, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm at home here right now and just going out when I need to.
Yeah.
Even though restrictions are relaxed a little bit, but still, I think people need to be careful. Uh, you
Yep.
know, nobody certainly wants to get into a situation. So it's good to be. You know,
Absolutely.
we're lucky in a way that we have the technology. Here it is, Zoom, which has become really popular now. I mean, it's fantastic how people are able to uh,
To
you know
connect and to actually do
yeah.
music.
It's
Are you
tricky.
involved?
I did a little coaching last week for a project, and never done before. And someone said to me, "Be prepared." And so you realize, I said to the singer, "Okay," I said, "I want to just check this tempo with you." So I said, I start you off. So I did 1, 2, silence, and then she
Exactly.
looked at me, and then she started, and I thought, "Oh my God, there's a delay."
Yep.
So she said, "Am I with you?" And I said, "No, but I'm ahead." It's sort of like when you work with certain orchestras, you give a beat and the sound is
That's right.
is delayed. So you have to come up with new techniques, new ways. You work a lot on rhythm. You can work a lot on diction.
Yeah.
And hearing the singer without piano.
Yeah.
Because it's, as you know, anybody who's done it, it's impossible to coordinate in real time.
Yeah.
When you think someone explained to me, the Zoom signal goes from your line
Yep.
up to the satellite and back down, and given the speed at which we're going, that's pretty good, but it's not instantaneous.
It's not instantaneous.
So
So
we make it work. We look for you look for ways
to to
for it to
to do
happen.
it. That's right. Did you ever have to uh, conduct anything virtually, or you?
Yes, there's a project that I'm working on now, and we had to put a conductor's track together.
Okay.
Uh, and
How'd you do that? Did you have all the audio on your side?
Yeah, what I did is I actually did what we called a dry conducting video, meaning that
Mhm.
in the silence. So in other words, I had the music in my head. Then a pianist was going to add after that to coordinate to my beat. But for me, not having the singers or anyone sort of responding, because as you know, as a conductor, you not only lead but you respond. You hear something come back, and
Mhm.
sometimes you make a slight little adjustment. You may
Mhm.
have to move ahead a little bit, hold back a little bit to keep things in order. And this, of course, is not possible.
Yeah.
So you just do it, and you hope everyone's
Yeah.
is going to be able to respond in the right way.
That's right. You touch on a very, very, very important point, which is, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we basically feed off of each other in
Hmm.
live performances. That's why live performances are so powerful, and it's a wheel that was invented and does not need to be reinvented. All of a sudden,
Right, right.
we can feed off of each other.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have to dry conduct, which is a term that I never knew before, and all of a sudden, you just have to be involved somehow.
Right.
Um, and singers don't feed off of one another, and it's so important for singers who have, I think, the most difficult job, being up there facing the audience, making us believe that they are really in love or they are really dying.
Hmm.
They have to do it in their imagination, as if it weren't difficult enough. We just have to add another layer. So
Right.
um, it's a very incredible time, and I hope you and your family have been safe and you're all
Yes,
well.
everybody is well, thank you. And that's the first. That's really the first thing.
Absolutely.
Whenever I'm in contact with anyone,
Absolutely.
it's asking them, are you well? Are you well and safe?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, because without
Exactly.
that, nothing else is
There's
going to
there's
happen.
not much there. There
So,
there is
that,
not much there.
so once you have that, and then everything else, flows out of that.
Yeah,
Then you
you are
have,
so right.
if your health is good and you're in a place of safety, then
Yeah.
Everything else can flow out of that.
Have you ever conducted in Germany?
No, I have not. I've conducted in Austria, but
Okay.
so close. But I have not conducted in Germany. No.
Well, they open their doors to
Yes.
patrons and to musicians, and the government just gave $1.5 billion to the arts, of which $500 million to live performances.
Mhm.
So, uh, how amazing is that? I mean, first of all, I think that their numbers were going down rapidly,
Yes.
and then they implemented
Hmm.
uh, safe ways to do what we do:
Hmm.
perform, listen, watch live. Uh, for the past 20 years, it seems like Germany is the Italy of the 18th and 19th century, where everything music
Hmm.
uh, is going on, especially these days. I mean,
Right.
any thought about that? Isn't that incredible?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's testament to what they've been able to achieve. I mean, their numbers in terms of how many people were ill and how everything was handled, and is very different than here. It's apparently different in every country, depending
Yeah,
on a lot of different population size and demographics and
exactly.
all of that kind of thing. But I'm very happy for them that they're able to point the way now a little bit and get things moving again. But for us in the U.S., and I've been working obviously with my assistant conductors at Glimmerglass,
Hmm.
and at the beginning of all of this, I sent a note to all of the young artist conductors that we've had at Glimmerglass since I started that young artist conducting program as part of the larger program at
Hmm.
Glimmerglass 7 years ago. And I just felt I wanted to write to everybody and tell them not to lose heart.
Yeah.
Plus, this is hard, I mean, for the musicians of my generation, yes, of course, there's lots of work that we had lined up and contracts that are obviously not happening. It's kind of the great leveler in many ways. No one is working except now bits and pieces in Europe are starting to open. Certainly in the U.S., everything, Carnegie Hall, the Met, us at Glimmerglass, Santa Fe, St. Louis, all the companies and orchestras, New York Philharmonic, everything is just
Cleveland too.
silent. Yeah, and with all of you in Cleveland as well too, silent at least until the end of the year. Probably we're looking now to 21, and I imagine young singers, conductors, pianists, instrumentalists, everybody, all young musicians getting their careers going, and all of a sudden having to face this. You had important things lined up, and then all of a sudden, they just simply evaporate. So the important thing I would tell, young artists is to not lose hope. To not lose hope. I know it's difficult to do that, but sometimes you have to, like I say, sometimes you have to take life in 15-minute increments. You can't look too far ahead. You go little by little. Everything is one step at a time.
Yeah.
If you're feeling down, well, it's okay to feel down. We're human beings, and this is a tremendous challenge, tremendous difficulty, especially in the arts. I mean, we can't work from home the way a banker works from home or lawyers working from home. And it's just a very different kind of thing. We're finding ways to keep active.
But it's not the same.
I tell the young artists, stay active, practice, study, read. You have now time to sometimes do reading or study that you may not have time for usually when you're busy, working and rehearsing, performing. So it's a good time to look at some background projects, and stay in touch with one another. That's
Yeah.
also very, very important. Stay in touch. Because when you're feeling down, it's great sometimes to reach out and hear someone else and they say, oh yeah, I'm feeling this same way. And, people start to commiserate.
Absolutely.
I told my young artist, I said, please reach out to me, email,
Hmm.
phone call, happy to chat with you.
Hmm.
Makes me feel good and makes, we understand then the connections we have in the artistic community. And
Yeah.
that's really important,
Yeah.
that we just stay in touch with our families and friends, and, you know, reach out to people, because sometimes you never know, someone else is feeling down or, you know, depressed. And it's a good way to, you know, to kind of bring some happiness in the midst of all this. Like I
Absolutely.
say, it's not going to last forever. You
Hmm.
know, we will get on the other side of this. I am
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely confident. You know, someone asked me, uh, are you optimistic about the, you know, the seasons coming up, and you're optimistic that things will happen? I say, no, I'm not optimistic, because, you know, optimism,
Mm.
interestingly, optimism, if you think about Candide by
Uh-huh.
Voltaire, you know, it's
Mhm.
a piece we did at Glimmerglass, I conducted a couple of seasons ago. And at one point, the character Cacambo asks Candide and says, well, what is optimism? And Candide answers, and of course, these are the words of Voltaire, but he says, optimism is the madness to say that all is well when it is not. You know, there's that kind of blind, you know, they call it
That's right.
rose-colored glasses, where, you know, people saying, oh, don't worry, everything will be fine. You know,
Yeah.
someone says, don't worry, it'll all work out, it'll all be good. Just smile and just get through it. No, but what I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful.
Yeah.
Hope is a different thing, because hope is born out of difficulty. Hope is born sometimes even out of suffering.
Hmm.
And, you know, as it goes, you know, hope then produces endurance, and it produces character.
So true.
And that is what allows you to go forward, that you can walk straight through a difficult situation. You know, there it is, COVID-19, you know, all these cancellations in the arts and all this devastation, and not just classical music. I mean,
Of course. Of
pop
course.
music, Broadway. I mean, and I'm
Yeah.
just, my heart is broken for all those wonderful musicians and singers and actors. I mean, it's a devastating thing. But there it is, and we walk straight through it, knowing that we will get on the other side. We will get on the other side. Things may be different, things may be better, but we will get on the other side, and will survive. And that's hope, and that's what I believe in.
Yeah. Hope. It really is true that hope never dies,
No,
and it is the fuel that that keeps on pushing you
yeah,
forward.
yeah,
And there's nothing, because it's not empty. It's not
no,
fake. It's
no.
it's something that we are born with, I
And,
think.
you know, our great Dante, you know,
Uh-huh.
recognized
Dante
the importance
Alighieri.
of hope, because,
Uh-huh.
as you know, inscribed over the portal of the entrance to hell, right?
Uh-huh.
Lasciate ogni speranza voi che entrate.
That's
Leave, you know, abandon all hope, ye who enter. And I mean, you know, you come in here and there's no hope, and that's catastrophe.
that's right.
That's total annihilation and devastation. So we have to remember Dante.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
keep the
right.
hope. Absolutely.
This is actually one of the things that um, I admire in you. Um, when I came to see your rehearsal process, no matter who you have in front of you, you're actually able to change your language, the way you communicate with people, whether it's students or young singers or seasoned professionals. Um, you just know what to say and when to say it in order to communicate uh, an idea, a thought, and you have always done it in the most not just professional way, obviously, but it's just in a kind way, and most likely with a smile, because I think you realize that uh, when you give people hope and when you give people kindness and smiles, their hearts are more open to accept you and what you have to say.
Wonderful.
Um,
Yes.
so you were our artistic director of the opera studies at Manus, correct?
Yes. 20 years. Yes.
So what you have given to young musicians is just incredible. Um, Obviously, you enjoyed what you did. How different is it to conduct young singers, deal with young singers, as opposed to a Pavarotti, a Domingo, uh, some of these people. Did you enjoy it?
All of it, all of it. And I'll tell you, I set a kind of a goal for myself really when I was first started forming my career and figuring out how best I felt I could fit in to the world of music, world of opera. And I knew that I always wanted to spend part of my year teaching and part of the year performing more or less in a professional situation. They sometimes blend together, which I have learned is something that happens because principally a conductor is a teacher. I mean, we know the word maestro, simply means teacher. That's all it means.
In elementary school, maestra.
Exactly. I mean, it simply means teacher. And the idea is that for someone to teach, you have to have mastery over the subject before you're going to guide someone else through it, or you need at least experience with the subject before you're going to guide someone else through it. So if you're working with young singers or young instrumentalists in orchestra, well, sometimes they're coming to these pieces, these works for the very first time. At Manus, many times I guided some of these students the very first opera, or the very first time they encountered Mozart, or the very first time they encountered Verdi. And you start at the beginning, which is a great joy for me. It helps me too to kind of go back and remember, oh yeah, I have to, all of these things. It's good to re-articulate those ideas again. It's really important. And then when you work with a very, very experienced professionals, experienced professional orchestra, like our orchestra at Glimmerglass, or the Met Orchestra, or some of the casts that I have worked with at the Met. And they've done the roles many, many times. Then you become a different kind of leader, a different kind of guide, because obviously your job is to collect all the information. They bring a great deal to the table, as it were, whether singers or orchestra. They bring a great deal to the table. And then you have to take all of that and unite it into an idea. And you always have to be confident that you have an idea, you have a point of view, you have something to say. You know what I mean? You have a way, even if someone is, singing their, 50th performance of Mimi. Well, now I'm at a point where, I go to do Bohème, and sometimes someone will say, oh, I bet you've done this a lot. Say, oh yeah, I think I've done about 125 or 150 performances. But even then, you're still learning, and it's a joy sometimes to work with a cast that's doing those roles, or an orchestra that's playing Bohème for the first time, to help guide them through it and say, hey, my experience, I've done this so many times, and I'm, we can't ever be stale about it or feel that, oh, just another one of these, another Figaro, another Don Giovanni, so it's very, very important to understand the situation you're in, and remember that you're there really to help and to guide as much as possible. And even, the very experienced seasoned singer, will say, oh, they'll come and say, please, over here, I need a little cue, I need something, or guide me. Sometimes I tend to be too slow here. Maestro, please push me a little bit, so I stay on the breath and all of that. So you learn to be a good collaborator, which is really what we are, exactly. A good collaborator, and one who offers ideas to, how can we make this better? And how can we make this work? How can we make this work for you? Not that it has to work for me, but it's work for us and for the production. Also with what the director is looking for. There's another important voice in the room there. Has a particular concept, and you have to get on board with that.
You mentioned Bohème, and that the fact that you did it 125 times is pretty amazing. And I think you had a few Bohème performances coming up that unfortunately were canceled.
This past spring, yes, I was due to make my debut at the Seattle Opera with La Bohème,
and unfortunately this happened. I'm sure they'll get you back, and they're going to be lucky to do so. But even though you learned and you performed something 125 times, do you still pick it up, and is it fun to start at the beginning, or to start like fresh, or you just go in the first rehearsal without even opening the music and you say, I kind of know this piece by now, you know?
You're always looking for new things.
That's right.
There are always new singers that have there are new challenges, or an orchestra that has a particular sound, or you're in a theater that has a particular kind of acoustic. I was very fortunate 2 years ago in October of 2018. I made my debut at the Teatro Cologne in Buenos Aires.
Beautiful.
Well, that theater, let me tell you, that is one of the great, as you know, one of the great theaters of the world. And of course, recently renovated, so it's spectacular inside. But more than that is the acoustic, which is legendary. I mean, the Met, I must say, is a fantastic acoustic. I mean, I love conducting the Met. But I will tell you, the Cologne is very, very different. The concertmaster kind of described it to me the first rehearsal. He said to me, you will find, he said, the sound here, he said, we all feel it's like playing inside of a Strad.
Oh, wow.
He says, like
Not
playing
bad.
the Strad. He said, it's just, he said, that everybody just feels, you know, the singers and the orchestra. I mean, I was so anxious the very first day that we got with orchestra in the theater. I couldn't wait. I just couldn't wait. You know, I was standing on this podium, you know. I mean, this was the theater that Toscanini opened. So, you know, you're standing on that same podium, you know, with all these great conductors that have been, you know, there before you, and all these great singers on the stage, and this wonderful orchestra, and the Cologne chorus is also a great group of people. Very, very Italian house. You know, very much in that style, which of course I grew up in, so I'm very comfortable with that. And I tell you that we got the Bohème started. Oh, the sound starts blooming in that theater. And I thought, wow, this is really heaven. And great audiences too. Wow.
How big of a house is that?
The Cologne is, I'm going to say 2,800 maybe.
Wow, yeah.
It's a little smaller than the Met.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But I believe it's a bit smaller than the Met. The Met is,
but it's still
close to 4,000.
It's pretty big size. I mean,
oh yeah, it's big. The you know, it's a pit that doesn't go under the stage. The orchestra pit is it's like in front. It's kind of not that deep, but it's very wide.
Did that impede in the balance with the singers, or
no? Not at all. Not at first. At first, it was. You know, you think, oh my God, are we going to be able to? You know, but orchestra, you know, they're very experienced. You know, they're as they call the orchestra stabile.
Yeah.
So they know the room very well.
Yeah.
So they know what they have to do to adjust and all of that. So their orchestra was wonderful, very, very helpful. You know, in knowing how to balance things.
Exactly. I have two more questions for you, and then you gave us already a lot of your time, and I'll let you go. It's Verdi month for Cleveland Opera Theater. Every month we feature a composer, and we decided to start with Giuseppe. What I admire in Giuseppe Verdi is his the musical journey that he began from nothing music. His parents, his family was not, they weren't musicians.
Right.
He was organist at 11 years old at a church across from his birthplace. Okay. And then he composed Falstaff a few years later. So going from nothing to band music to Traviata to Aida to Falstaff, wow. I don't think there's a composer that has gone through such incredible musical journey. Who is Giuseppe Verdi for you? What does he represent? And any thoughts that you have on this incredible composer?
Oh, goodness. Wow. I hope we have enough time.
Well, exactly.
Those who know me know that, you know, Verdi is very, very close to my heart. How do I start? Verdi is universal. It is, I don't think it's an accident that Verdi was a great admirer of Shakespeare. Because, I mean, you know, he set Macbeth, he set obviously Falstaff based on Shakespearean plays, Otello, which is one of the great operas, certainly of his canon, and I think one of the great pieces of music of all time in any genre. And of course, he flirted with King Lear, an opera that he started to sketch and then never got to, and that's a regret that we have. And Verdi always said that he loved Shakespeare. We know that he kept the complete works of Shakespeare in the Italian translation by Carcano at his bedside at Sant'Agata, which means that those were the volumes that sometimes before going to sleep, he would pull a volume out and read some sonnets or read parts of a play, or, so Verdi was very, very close to Shakespeare. And I think that's no accident, because like Shakespeare, who obviously lived in the Elizabethan era, and Verdi, who was square in the 19th century, and I lived 1 year into the 20th century. But we have with Verdi that great universal understanding of what it means to be a human being. There's a wonderful book that I recommend. It's very kind of deep reading. It's a Shakespeare and literature scholar from Yale, Harold Bloom, who is now passed away. And he wrote a book called Shakespeare and the Invention of the Human. And his whole thesis of the book is how Shakespeare, through those characters in the plays, Falstaff and Hamlet and I'm all those great characters, Othello, that these characters were really as if he were inventing what it meant to be a human being. And I often think of Verdi in those terms. Whereas Shakespeare used words, Verdi used music. He used musical notes. And by means of musical notes, Verdi he had the great gift to be able to express any human emotion by means of notes. Any human emotion in all of the operas. I mean, this, we know, you don't even have to understand the text. You hear the music and you know immediately. And he was so close to that kind of expression. So as Shakespeare, as Professor Bloom said, invented the human through his literature. So in many ways, I like to say Verdi invents the human through his music. And it was amazing. You see they're like two great figures of culture and history on a mountaintop. They lived in completely different times, did not obviously know each other, but yet it's as if they, through the stretch of time, they refer to one another. So the way I do revere Shakespeare, so then do I revere Verdi as just being great, great benchmark, understanding what it means to be a human. The music is absolutely incredible.
He just describes in his music, he describes people so well and the humanity of the people.
Yeah, exactly. And he was attracted to characters and situations where we see sometimes, the difficulties of what it means to live, the difficulties of life worked out. That's why I think when people go to a Verdi opera, they respond so strongly, because it's like, my God, they certainly, the Italians did during the Risorgimento period, the reunification of Italy. I heard in the first version of Macbeth, 1847, and they heard Patria oppressa and La Patria tradita, all of these calls to battle against people trying to oppress you. And the audiences were saying, "Oh, but that didn't happen." Yes, it's a story about Scotland, but this is us. This is happening now. Verdi is he's speaking for us. They use the acronym Viva Verdi, which they took up. Which we don't mean long live Verdi, but really Vittorio Emanuele Re di Italia. I was in Rome last December, and when I went by the great monument to Victor Emmanuel, and I saw, and I said, aha, I can feel the message of Verdi, Viva Verdi.
That's right, the message of Verdi. Oh, that's funny. Wow, it's very interesting. It seems like Verdi completed the circle that Shakespeare started, and Verdi put it to music.
Yes, yeah, and when you get the two of them together, that's the amazing thing. Like Macbeth and Othello and Falstaff, you get something really extraordinary.
Last question. This is an easy one.
Okay.
If God didn't inject you with music in your veins and didn't give you the gift of music, what would Maestro Colaneri would have done with his life?
Oh, I think I would have gone into languages, linguistics.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, I always had a love of languages from when I was very young. I grew up in a house with
Italiano.
grandparents who were Italian immigrants and spoke a dialect from the South.
Hmm.
I learned listening to them,
Hmm.
and I when I then formally studied it, Italian, learned to really read and write, the Vero Toscano,
Sì, sì.
and I I would see all these wonderful, oh, that word was that, and this is this, and
Mhm.
I studied Latin when I was young also, and I remember also seeing words there, Latin words that I thought, well, my grandparents used these words,
That's
so
right. That's
in
right. Wow.
small towns, people like that, they were still pockets there where they used ancient words. So yeah, I think linguistics would have been something
Very interesting.
I love, and language and music and opera, and it's kind of connected. So
Exactly.
that's maybe
Exactly.
what I would have done, but who knows?
E con quello mi sa che concludiamo. In fact, speaking in Italian, maestro, grazie mille della
Prego.
sua presenza. Thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure as
My
always.
my pleasure to be with you, and I wish you great success
Thank you,
at
sir.
Cleveland Opera Theater, and uh, invite you and your patrons to come and visit us at Glimmerglass.
Yep.
We'll be back.
Can you remind us the website?
The website is
Mhm.
glimmerglass.org,
Okay.
and all of our summer online offerings will be listed there. So please come and visit the website, and we'd look forward to welcoming you there. And I hope to come and visit you in Cleveland one of these days.
I really hope so. I really hope so. We'll have a good time. I'll make sure.
I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that.
Grazie maestro e a
Great.
presto.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you.